time was now in the present day. An elderly scientist stepped away, went inside a basement with a chamber in it where a man would lay in an arrested state. He was slightly frozen with his life exposed. The case was gold and it was tightly closed. The scientist then approached nice and slow, located a keypad and typed the code. He heard a bang as if the frame had popped. The oxygen within the chamber stopped. He was calm in the middle of a dangerous spot. Then the airtight steel door came unlocked. The man was tired yet he rose elated. His hair was grown out, his clothes were dated. He pulled out and read from a folded paper where his name and identity he slowly stated. The 50s was the decade he's born. He was now in a place that's way beyond. He was asked what year and date he's from. He said August of 1981. He said, do you recall how we got you here? He said, yes, I'm a program volunteer. He said, this is the breakthrough of my career. You are now in the clear, you are not the fear. He was grateful the case was safe for travel. Said, I have questions I can't wait to ask you. 43 long years he was laid and shackled in a cryogenic preservation capsule. He was told, relax and get your nerves together. Out of every person, he was the first one ever to insert himself in an unheard endeavor of bringing one from the past to the current era. To this mode of science that was no denying. It plainly showed that the goal to triumph had a scope, and before they could socialize him to help him cope in an unroped environment, the conversation was beyond amazing. Of all of the years, not one had aged him. They asked him questions, the responses dazed him. Who's the president? He said Ronald Reagan. For one full day, he was up in the lab, giving answers that sounded stuck in the past. He was grilled until there was nothing to ask. What's the price of gas? He said $1.50. He passed every test, every tedious plight to see if it's right. Some he repeated it twice. Picture all that time just deleted from life. But to him it felt like he was asleep overnight, but still in a weak state cause he hadn't ate. There were specialized vitamins he had to take, had to wait for the nutrients to activate so his mind and his anatomy could acclimate. First contact after that time alone, seeing things that he would never find at home. Another level of technology finally known. When they showed on the internet his mind was blown. He stifled quick, what kind of device is this? Anything I want to know, just type and click. Every sports event, every world crisis miss. How can anything like this in life exist? Famous people who passed on were quite the list. Muhammad Ali, Sinatra, Mike and Prince. Young stars and world leaders, celebrities deep were either grown up old or already deceased. Anything he didn't believe there was evidence. They helped him process with rare benevolence. The world was embedded with next level intelligence. Couldn't believe that he had stepped through 5 presidents and once commanded all things were answered. New means of transit, it seems were rampant. It felt like a dream, but the reality was he was now in a world of extreme advancement. It was finally time for him to visualize and see the outside with his own 2 eyes. He looked surprised when he walked out the building. The feeling of anxiety nearly killed him. It was hard to frame because it all was strange. The smallest things, even the cause it changed. Yet it jarred his brain cause it was still a few spots he recalled from his time that he saw remain. He saw people in a vast wide open zone, different looks and new types of clothing on. He was still mentally trying to hold his own. What is everybody carrying? Those are phones. That concept was way too far to fathom. He was shocked when every person he saw it had him. He asked him if those are phones, why some people talking while others are just staring at him. He explained a few things that it could do. You could use internet and take pictures too. At that moment the scientist's phone would ring. The man flipped when a face came on the screen. It was like he was talking into the TV. Can that man that you're looking at truly see me? He told him yes and said here it's easy. When the man talked to him he freaked completely. He was breathless. Now he had more to question. Never saw nothing like this except the Jetsons. They put him in a vehicle and put an address in. The car started talking and giving directions. He was in the future yet still the present. Glad to be selected to live this blessing. What he missed was fed into his mind in sections from the end of apartheid to 9/11. Every war was told martial law exposed. Over people the government had more control. Any music from then that he bought was old rap exploded and now was the largest soul. He had lost every minute of a long continuum. The 80s, the 90s, and new millennium. Living a dream that he couldn't prove to anyone. And truth is he had only viewed the minimum when he learned about crack. His soul was hurt. Did they ever cure cancer? No, it's worse. Not a new and old earth, the roles reversed. Lost faith in everything he hoped at first. What about racism? Is that erased? Unfortunately, no, it's still in place. He was crushed to learn that was still the case. In his heart he felt there was a real disgrace. Then he wondered how all these years amassed in the world we live in was still as bad. Not a path was laid out to feel the wrath, to process it all. He was ill prepared. He was so deflated by this broken place. What would motivate folks to hold a hate? The man couldn't conceive the decadence in agreed, so the scientist set him down and told him straight. Since the date you entered your unconscious state, the planet grew from 4 billion people to 8. So the government raced to depopulate, cause the leaders dictate with heathenish traits. The increase of murder and lack of love, the advent of AI and random drugs. Out of all his time and it slipped his mind, he hadn't even asked where his family was. He was drawn to gas, then he calmly asked. His son was 1 when he begun his task. The scientist had to let him know the fact that his dad was still living but his mom had passed. He broke down and like a young child he cried. Learned half of all his close friends had died. Then he felt what he did was a selfish call, cause in taking his step he had left them all. He was overcome like his life was done. He said, can I please see my wife and son. He was told he could, but under one condition. He had to witness them from a distance. We told him we took you on an expedition, and during the mission you came up missing. So how would it look if today you came 4 decades later and looked the same? He understood, yet he felt divided. They drove him to where his wife resided. She walked outside to check the mail. She was 70 years old, gray and frail. So out of sight, he was standing clear. Too far to spot, no chance to hear. Then a man appeared, it was a husband. She had been remarried 30 other vanished years. The shock was great, he had to stop and pray. The healing might come, but not today. Remaining silent with a lot to say. And his son just lived a few blocks away. To his son's address, they drove him fast. He was in the yard about to mow the grass. It was so contrasting to see a man who was a baby last week when he got to hold him last. So they chose to leave before he noticed them. He realized his own son was older than him. Now his heart was broken, he was incomplete. He had grandchildren that he couldn't meet. He said he learned from this. When this procedure ends, when you send me back, I'll never leave again. The scientist said, send back, you know the rules. This is not time travel, you're confused. Every year that went by, you lived it, son. All the chamber did was to keep you young. I know it's strange for you to feel swept away from a life that seems like it was yesterday. But the reality is you must now rebuild. Contact your family and you'll be killed. This is now the existence that you must go through and adjust to this brand new world I showed you. Here's the paperwork with a signed proposal from 40 years ago when I first told you. The man said, we've never met before. First time was when you opened the chamber door. I assumed that you were just a man assigned to guide me. When I woke up in the modern time, he said, no sir, sit down and I'll reveal it. The cryogenic machine, I'm who built it. Concentrate, look into my face a minute. I was young like you when I placed you in it, but I grew old just like the rest of your people, and you should be glad that I lived to free you. He said, sir, you were just half the story. He took the man back to the laboratory. They took an elevator down to the basement. I'm training you to be my replacement. My time is ending in this earthly venue. When I'm gone, the program must continue. The man was still shook and crushed indeed, but he had no choice, and so he just agreed. When the lights were turned on, to his surprise, it was a new chamber with a new man inside. The scientist gave the codes to unlock the door. It was set